Manila, 10 a.m. in Tokyo, 11 a.m. in Sydney. In today's edition of Market Edge, you're looking at a live shot there from the trading floor of the Philippine Stock Exchange, where Energy Development Corp celebrates its 10th year listing anniversary with the ringing of the bell. We'll bring that for you live when it happens and speak with EDC's President and Chief Operating Officer Richard Tantoco later on in the show on the company's plans in the renewable energy space. Welcome back to Market Edge. Energy Development Corp's boss Richard Tantoco is pushing for a 50% renewable energy share in the Philippines' energy mix as the Duterte administration supports initiatives on clean energy. Joining us now from the trading floor with Michelle Long is EDC boss Tantoco, who just rang the opening bell for us, marking the firm's 10th year listing anniversary. Congratulations, Richard. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, thank you, Kathy, and good morning.
So where is EDC now in its renewable energy push as the year comes to a close?
As the year comes to a close, we're very happy with where we are with respect to all of the capital expenditures we've made on our existing assets. We're poised to deliver a bumper crop year next year with all of the assets becoming much more reliable. We've also established quite a foothold in Indonesia with one of the concessions that we have been chasing for the better part of 6 years. It's practically ours as of today. It's called Graho Nyabu in Indonesia. So it's all told, it's a very good year.
So when you say bumper crop, how close are you to adding 200 to 300 megawatts of green energy projects to your portfolio?
Geothermal takes a long time. It's a business for those that have a lot of stamina. So we need first couple of years to explore and drill, and then another 2 to 3 years to build the power plant. So for geothermal, it's probably going to be about closer to the 5 years to 6 years for greenfield, but much shorter if we are successful in some of the acquisitions we are looking at.
Such as?
Right now we're on 2 live transactions. One of them is solar, and the other one is geothermal. Unfortunately, the non-disclosure agreements of both projects prevent me from providing any details. But rest assured that should we make any progress, I will inform you first.
I'm sure Mimi's going to get it first, right, Mimi?
Yes, yes.
I hope so.
Absolutely.
But speaking of that investment in Indonesia, you're actually one of the 5 companies shortlisted to bid for Chevron assets there. So aside from Indonesia, you also have ventures in Chile and Peru,
correct,
which have been placed on hold.
Correct.
So when do we expect these things to start moving along?
Correct. Chile was on a temporary hold because of the very competitive tenders that are ongoing there right now. They have a lot of hydro and solar in the Atacama Desert. But for Peru, we've been pushing very hard for the government to actually tender a feed-in tariff for geothermal. And we expect that will happen sometime towards the latter half of next year or in early 2018. And that is something we are excited about because the largest geothermal site in the world is here in Leyte. It's 39 square kilometers of heat. We have concessions in Indonesia that are 60 and 70 square kilometers of heat. Massive resources. So we're pushing very hard in Peru and working with the government for those concessions to develop.
What's your target like when it comes to expanding capacity over the next, say, 2 to 3 years?
As I said earlier, geothermal takes a lot of time. So in the short term, it will be acquisition and solar driven. We're making a big push into solar. And then in the medium to longer term, that's the time frame in which we're going to be developing more geothermal. So the overall strategy is like launching a flotilla of ships, some in Peru, some in Chile, some in Indonesia, some acquisitions.
Any other countries you're looking at?
Those are the key ones right now.
Just the 3.
Just looking back at the local market here, Richard, you were quoted earlier saying to be able to roll out these projects, it is important to have clear and stable policy directives from the Duterte administration. Have you received the clarity you needed for the policies involving prices that price carbon and set quotas for different types of energy?
Right. You know, I think the Duterte administration has to consider multiple factors. So let me give you an example. Everything you hear in the media argues for coal, right? Let's go coal because it's the cheapest. Let's go coal, it's the cheapest. Well, let me tell you and all your watchers, Kathy, that coal, Indonesian coal, was $44 a metric ton in February, and just a couple of weeks ago reached 110. So what does that mean for the Filipino consumers going out into the future. Even if it stabilizes at about 80, it doesn't mean that the cheap energy will be there to stay, which is why we're pushing very, very hard for geothermal to happen, because if you make it happen, it provides stable, base load, and clean energy. And if I may, I just wanted to talk about the clean point for a minute, because I think one of the arguments of the Duterte administration is we're one of the lowest emitters of carbon in the world, so why pursue a clean energy policy? Well, my answer to that is very simple. If you have stage 4 cancer, why continue smoking, right? And the Philippines is the single most vulnerable nation on earth. 320 events in 10 years compared to just 220 events for Bangladesh and Thailand. So we are the most vulnerable, and every single ton of carbon we throw out into the atmosphere is actually detrimental to Duterte's and mine and the Catholic churches and yours, poorest of the poor. It's not the people who trade in the stock exchange that are going to get affected. It's actually the poorest of the poor. So we all have to work hand in hand to decarbonize the energy sector.
So are you getting more clarity on balance in terms of policies that's going to convince you to actually ramp up investments in the next 6 years?
Correct. You know, I think there's enough clarity, but I think there has to be more decisiveness. Yesterday, the Secretary of Energy said in the newspaper that he was the last cabinet member that has yet to sign and agree the COP21 accord, right? And I think that's something that we need to work on. So we've been working a lot. We've been talking to the regulator, the senators, the congressmen, people from the DOE, and we really want to move the industry towards a decarbonized future.
Okay, just 2 quick questions. Back to numbers. Profit. We're expecting flat profit this year. When do we see a jump in profit? You know, Richard, I just want to note, investors are liking this interview because your share prices are jumping right now, cheering EDC on up over, okay, it's up just 0.6%, but you're bucking the downswing. So tell us about profit.
Profits this year are going to be flat, and then next year, the major capex that we had this year on 3 large power plants are all going to kick in. So even without doing much, the additional revenue from the uptick in the amount of energy sold next year will actually boost the company. And then on top of that, because this has been a challenging year from a competitive standpoint, we've maintained a very disciplined cost management effort, and we've been able to work wonders. So next year, we're looking at a slightly better year, but again, we're in this for the long haul. How
about foreign exchange? Because you've got the stronger dollar. First Gen, I'm sure, has exposure to dollar-denominated loans.
Correct.
How do you see that affecting your numbers?
On our books right now, we have about $480 million worth of debt. We have about $330 million of actual hedges, financial hedges, and natural hedges within our contract. Plus our Burgos wind farm is 100% dollar-denominated. So I wish we were actually hedged a little bit more, but we're in a decent position. Plus, our CFO is very conservative, so we're always sitting on a mountain of cash.
Okay, mountain of cash. I like how that sounds. EDC shares trading up by 0.6% to 5 pesos and 42 centavos a piece. It's actually bucking the downswing. The index widening those losses down by 0.75%. 68.21. In the meantime, at the foreign exchange market, the peso is still stronger, 49.779 against the U.S. dollar. Volume there, $96 million. Kathy?
Richard, just a final question. 50% of the energy mix you wanted to be renewable. How achievable in 2017?
Correct. You know, right now, EDC accounts for 23% of all renewable capacity, but in the energy industry, we've actually gone down from 38% renewable in the Philippines to about 26. It's going to take some time for it to go back up. But this is a long game, you know. I think we really should begin to transition out of coal, build natural gas, and then on top of that, build a lot of renewables. So it's going to take time, maybe 2030. But you know, it's an industry that requires a lot of patience and stamina and fortitude, which the industry players have in abundant amounts.
Understood, and congratulations again on the 10th listing anniversary, Richard Tantoco of EDC Corp. Much appreciate the time and the sharing.
Thank you very much.